I never planned to become a mother this way. I met David at a time when I thought my life was already full, my career, my friends, my quiet routines. He was a widower. No, wait, that's not quite right. His ex-wife hadn't passed, she had simply left. That's how he described it back then. She was unstable. She couldn't handle it. She walked away when our son was just 3. I believed him. Why wouldn't I? David was kind, steady, the kind of man who remembered little things, like how I took my coffee or that I hated surprises. And then there was little Ethan. On our first real date, David brought him along. Not to test me, but because he didn't have a sitter. Ethan was 5, all wide eyes and messy curls, clutching a toy truck like it was armor. He didn't say much that night, just watched me with this serious little stare. I smiled, asked about his truck, and he finally mumbled, "It's fast." That was it. One word. But something shifted in me right then. I didn't know it yet, but I was already choosing him. We married a year later. Ethan was 6 by then. The ceremony was small, just us, a few friends, and Ethan in a tiny suit that kept slipping off his shoulders. When the officiant asked if anyone objected, Ethan piped up, "I don't object." Everyone laughed, but I saw his little hands trembling. I knelt down afterward and whispered, "You're stuck with me now, kiddo." He hugged me, quick, fierce, and that was the first time I felt like more than Daddy's friend. I didn't try to replace his mother. I never said call me mom or pushed for it. But the gaps were there, and I filled them without thinking. School drop-offs when David had early meetings. Packing lunches with little notes, "You've got this, champ." Band-aids on scraped knees after playground falls. Bedtime stories when nightmares woke him, stories about brave boys who faced dragons and won. There were hard moments too. Ethan would sometimes pull away, say things like, "You're not my real mom. Thank you in advance. And you, what would you do in this person's place?" I would love to hear your opinion, so please share it with me in the comments. I'm always curious about what you all think, and also write me where you heard this story. For more life stories like this, like the video and subscribe to my channel. There are many other stories waiting for you. With heartfelt greetings. Until next time. It stung, but I understood. He was grieving a life he barely remembered, and I was the new piece that didn't quite fit yet. I'd just nod, say, "I know. I'm just here to love you anyway." And slowly, over months that turned to years, the pulling away happened less. By the time Ethan was 8, he started calling me mom without hesitation. It wasn't forced, it slipped out naturally one evening when he needed help with homework. "Mom, what's 7 times 8? I froze for a second, heart pounding, then answered like it was the most normal thing in the world. Inside, I was crying. I was there for it all. His first lost tooth, he insisted I be the tooth fairy. The school play where he was a tree but stole the show anyway. The time he got bullied in 4th grade, I sat with him on the porch swing until midnight, listening to his tears, telling him he was enough just as he was. Teaching him to ride a bike in the driveway, running beside him, letting go when he was ready. He wobbled, then steadied, then shouted, "I did it, Mom." We built traditions, Sunday pancakes with silly faces made of fruit. Annual camping trips where we'd stargaze and talk about dreams. I cheered at every soccer game, even when he missed every shot. I was the one who explained puberty changes, held him when his first crush broke his heart, helped him pick out clothes for middle school dances. David was a wonderful father, present, loving, but work kept him busy. I became the constant. The one who knew Ethan's favorite snacks, his fears, the way he fidgeted when he was lying about something small. I didn't do it for credit. I did it because loving him felt as natural as breathing. He wasn't my husband's son. He was our son. My son. In every way that mattered. There were nights I'd lie awake wondering if I was enough. Was I filling the hole his birth mother left? Or was I just papering over it? But then Ethan would do something small, like leaving a drawing on my pillow that said, "Best mom ever," and the doubt would fade. I learned that motherhood isn't about biology. It's about showing up when it's hard. It's about choosing love every single day, even on the days when the child pushes you away or the world tells you you're just a stepmom. I chose Ethan over and over. Through tantrums, through teenage moodiness creeping in, through the ordinary beautiful mess of raising a boy into a young man. By the time he was 14, our bond felt unbreakable. He confided in me about school stress, girls, dreams of college. He'd hug me goodbye before school without thinking twice. David would smile and say, "You two are something else." And I felt proud, not possessive, but deeply grateful. I had been given the gift of this child, and I had poured my whole heart into raising him. Looking back, those years were the foundation. The quiet, steady love that made us a family. I thought we had it all figured out. I thought the story was about how love wins, how choosing a child makes you a mother forever. Then one afternoon, the doorbell rang. And on the other side stood a woman I had only seen in old photos. Ethan's birth mother. She wasn't there to take him away. She was there to tell me something that would rewrite everything I thought I knew about our family. But before we get there, those first 15 years? They were real. They were mine. They were ours. It was a Tuesday in late spring. Ethan was 15, almost 16, tall now, voice deeper, always with earbuds in. David was at work, as usual. I was folding laundry in the living room when the doorbell rang. Not the confident double press of a delivery person, but a single, tentative chime. I opened the door, and there she was. A woman in her mid-40s, maybe a little older than me. Dark hair pulled back simply, wearing a plain cardigan and jeans. She looked tired, not in a dramatic way, but the kind of tired that comes from carrying something heavy for a long time. Her eyes were the same hazel as Ethan's. That was the first thing that hit me. She smiled, small and uncertain. "Hi. I'm Sarah. Ethan's birth mother." My heart did that thing where it drops and races at the same time. I stood there, laundry basket still in my arms, staring. She didn't push. Just waited, hands clasped in front of her like she was afraid I'd slam the door. I didn't. I stepped aside. "Come in." We sat. I offered coffee, she accepted. The silence stretched until the kettle whistled. She spoke first. "I know this is out of nowhere. I don't want to disrupt anything. I just needed to see him. Not take him, just see that he's okay." I nodded, trying to keep my voice even. "He's okay. He's great, actually. Smart. Kind. Plays soccer. Wants to study engineering." Her eyes softened. "He gets good grades?" "Always has." She looked down at her hands. I never stopped thinking about him. I left because I was a mess back then. Depression, panic attacks. I thought he'd be better off without me dragging him down. I signed away my rights so David could move on, build a real family. I felt a mix of things: sympathy, defensiveness, confusion. We did build a family. Ethan calls me Mom. He has since he was 8. She didn't flinch. Just nodded slowly. "I know. I've kept track. From a distance. Social media, school newsletters when I could find them. I saw pictures of his birthday parties. The camping trips. You in the background, smiling like you belonged there." Her voice cracked just a little. "You gave him what I couldn't. Thank you for that." I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to be angry, how dare she show up now, but she wasn't demanding anything. No custody talk. No drama. Just gratitude mixed with grief. We met a few more times after that first day, always neutral places, always short. A park bench once. A quiet cafe another time. Ethan didn't know yet, I wasn't ready to bring him into it. I needed to understand first. Sarah was careful with her words. She talked about her life after leaving, therapy, rebuilding, a small job in another state. She asked about Ethan, the little things. Did he still love dinosaurs? Was he afraid of thunderstorms? I answered honestly, and each answer seemed to both comfort and wound her. But there were moments that felt off. She'd trail off mid-sentence, like she was holding something back. Once, when I mentioned how close Ethan and David were, she looked away and said quietly, David was always good at protecting the story he wanted to tell. I pressed gently. What do you mean? She shook her head. Nothing. Just old regrets. Another time, she pulled an old photo from her wallet, a faded picture of her holding newborn Ethan, eyes red from crying. She showed it to me briefly, then tucked it away. I look at this every day. To remember why I left, and why I stayed gone. I felt the ground shift under me. Not dramatically, just a quiet tilt. This wasn't the unstable woman I'd imagined for years. This was someone who had suffered, made a choice, and carried it alone. And yet, there was something she wasn't saying. That night after our last meeting, I sat on the porch swing, the same one where I'd comforted Ethan through so many heartaches. I thought about telling David. About telling Ethan. About what this woman's return might mean. I wasn't afraid she'd take him. She clearly didn't want that. But I was afraid of what she knew that I didn't. Of what might change if the past wasn't as simple as she left. We moved on. Ethan came out then, sat beside me. Put his head on my shoulder like he used to when he was smaller. You okay, Mom? I wrapped my arm around him. Yeah, kiddo. Just thinking. He didn't push. Just stayed. And in that moment, everything still felt solid. But I knew it wouldn't stay that way much longer. Sarah had asked for one more meeting. She said there was something I needed to hear, something about Ethan's birth, about why she really left. Something David never told me. I agreed to meet her. Because whatever came next, I owed it to Ethan to know the truth. Even if it hurt. The twist centers on a secret that reframes everything. Ethan's birth involved a brief separation between David and Sarah during which Sarah became pregnant, possibly with someone else, but David chose to raise him as his own without ever telling anyone the full story. Sarah left not purely from instability, but from overwhelming shame, postpartum crisis, and pressure to let the family narrative stay intact. The secret was kept to protect Ethan and the new family you built. We met at the same cafe where we'd talked before. Sarah was already there, hands folded on the table like she was praying. She looked smaller somehow, as if the weight of what she carried had finally bent her. I sat down. No small talk this time. She slid an old envelope across the table. Yellowed, edges worn. This is the letter I wrote to David the day I left. I never sent it. But I kept a copy. You need to read it. I opened it with shaking hands. The handwriting was neat but frantic. The letter began with apologies. Then the truth. David and Sarah had separated for a few months years earlier, after a rough patch in their marriage. During that time, Sarah had a brief relationship. She got pregnant. When they reconciled, she told David the baby might not be his. He said it didn't matter, he loved her, he'd love the child. They'd raise him together. But after Ethan was born, the doubt ate at her. Postpartum depression hit hard. Panic attacks. She felt like an imposter in her own family. David, trying to hold things together, suggested she take time away, get help, and he'd handle everything. She agreed, thinking it was temporary. Then the calls stopped being warm. Family members, his side, whispered that she was unstable, that Ethan deserved better. David never corrected the story. He let it become the truth everyone believed, she abandoned them. In the letter, she wrote, "I left because I thought you'd all be happier without my broken pieces. But I never stopped loving him. Tell him one day, if he asks, that his mother loved him enough to let him go." I looked up at Sarah. Tears were streaming down her face, silent. "Why now?" I whispered. "Because he's almost grown. Because secrets like this poison everything eventually. And because I saw how much you love him. You deserved to know the whole story. Not the version David told." My chest felt crushed. Not just anger at David for the lie of omission, at the family for the judgment, but grief. For Sarah, who carried this alone. For Ethan, who might never have known. For myself, whose entire role as mom suddenly felt built on half-truths. I waited until Ethan was asleep that night. Then I showed David the letter. He didn't deny it. Just sat there, face pale, eyes filling. I thought, if no one knew, it wouldn't hurt anyone. Ethan was mine from the moment he was born. Biology didn't change that. But you let me believe she was just unstable. You let me build our life on a story that wasn't complete. He reached for my hand. I pulled back at first, then let him hold it. I was scared. Scared you'd look at him differently. Scared you'd leave. I chose the easiest path. We cried. Not shouting. Just quiet, exhausted tears. He apologized, not for loving Ethan, but for the silence that had kept me in the dark. I told him how much it hurt to feel like an outsider in my own family story. But even in the pain, I couldn't hate him. He was human. Flawed. Trying to protect what he loved most. The next days blurred. I didn't tell Ethan yet. I needed time to sit with it. I grieved the illusion, the clean story of she left, I stepped in, loved one. But beneath the hurt, something else emerged, deeper compassion. For Sarah, who sacrificed her place to spare Ethan pain. For David, who chose fatherhood over ego or truth. For me, who had loved without needing to own the title. And for Ethan, still blissfully unaware, whose life had been shaped by love, even if the path was messier than I'd known. I realized the truth didn't erase the years I poured into him. It reframed them. My motherhood wasn't diminished, it was proven. Because I chose him every day, knowing only part of the story. But the recalibration was coming. Conversations needed to happen. With Ethan, Sarah, and all of us. The family we built wasn't broken by this secret. It was about to be tested, and perhaps healed, by honesty. The truth didn't explode our family. It cracked it open quietly, like ice thawing in spring. For the first few days, I moved through the house like a ghost. I cooked dinner, folded laundry, answered Ethan's questions about school, but inside, everything felt rearranged. I kept replaying Sarah's letter in my mind. The separation. The doubt about paternity. David's choice to raise Ethan anyway. The silence that followed. Each memory I cherished, Ethan calling me mom for the first time, the way he hugged me after his first heartbreak, now carried a shadow. Not because the love wasn't real, but because it had been built partly on what wasn't said. I cried in the shower so no one would hear. I cried driving home from the grocery store. I cried looking at Ethan across the dinner table, wondering how much of his life story I still didn't know, and how much I had the right to protect him from. But even in the grief, I never once thought of walking away. That was the strange, stubborn part. The hurt didn't erase the choice I'd made every day for 15 years. It just made the choice feel heavier. David and I talked every night after Ethan went to bed. No raised voices. Just exhausted, careful words. He told me everything he'd buried, how terrified he was when Sarah first said the baby might not be his. How he decided it didn't matter because he already loved the life growing inside her. How, after she left, he was afraid that telling the truth would make people question his fatherhood, or worse, make Ethan feel unwanted. I told myself I was protecting him, he said, voice breaking. But I was protecting myself too. From judgment. From losing you before we even started. I told him how betrayed I felt, not because Ethan might not be his biologically, that part barely registered, love doesn't care about DNA tests, but because I had spent years defending our family story to skeptical friends, to my own doubts, without knowing it was incomplete. I thought I was the one who filled the gap, I said. Turns out the gap was bigger than anyone admitted. And I still filled it. But I deserved to know what I was filling. We sat in silence a lot. Held hands sometimes. Cried together once, raw, ugly crying that left us both spent. Forgiveness didn't come in a single moment. It came in layers, one honest sentence at a time, one shared memory at a time. By the end of the week, we weren't fixed. But we were talking. Really talking. And that felt like the beginning of something stronger. We decided Ethan deserved the truth before it came from anywhere else. He was almost 16, old enough to understand nuance, young enough that secrets could still wound deeply. We sat him down one Saturday afternoon. No build-up. Just, there's something we need to tell you about when you were born. We explained it simply, without blame. Sarah's struggle. The separation. The uncertainty about biology. David's choice to be his dad no matter what. Sarah's decision to step away so he could have stability. And how she came back, not to take anything, but to make sure the story was whole. Ethan listened, mostly quiet. His eyes filled when we got to Sarah's letter. When we finished, he looked at me first. So, you knew none of this? All those years? I shook my head. Not until recently. He turned to David. You never told her? David swallowed. I was scared. I'm sorry, son. Ethan looked down at his hands for a long time. Then he said, softly, I always wondered why she left. I thought maybe I wasn't enough. My heart shattered all over again. I reached for him. He let me pull him close. You were always enough, I whispered. For all of us. He didn't cry right then. But later that night he came to my room, sat on the edge of the bed, and said, You're still my mom. Nothing changes that. Okay? I nodded, throat too tight to speak. He hugged me, longer than usual. And in that hug, I felt the first real piece of healing click into place. A few weeks later, I invited Sarah to meet Ethan. Not as a reunion with fireworks, just coffee in a park, no pressure. She brought a small box, baby pictures, a hospital bracelet, a tiny onesie she'd kept. Ethan looked through them quietly. Asked a few questions. Mostly, he just sat with her. He didn't call her mom. He called her Sarah. And that was okay. She didn't push for more. Afterward, she and I walked a little ways apart from him. I never wanted to hurt you, she said. I just wanted him to know he was wanted. From the beginning. I know, I told her. And I'm glad he knows now. We didn't become best friends. But we became something kinder than strangers, two women who loved the same boy in different chapters of his life. We agreed on occasional contact, birthdays, maybe a text now and then. Boundaries that felt respectful to everyone. I realized something important in those weeks. Love isn't a finite resource. There was room for Sarah's love without diminishing mine. There was room for truth without erasing the family we'd built. The recalibration wasn't perfect. Some days the hurt resurfaced. Some conversations still stung. But we kept choosing each other, honestly, messily, completely. And slowly, the cracks didn't feel like fractures anymore. They felt like places where light could get in. Months passed after that first park meeting. Life didn't change overnight. There were no big family reunions, no dramatic declarations. Just small, steady adjustments that made the picture feel more complete. Sarah stayed in touch, mostly through texts at first. A happy birthday to Ethan. A photo of a sunset with the caption, "Thought you might like this." He answered when he felt like it, short and polite. Sometimes he'd show me the messages. "She's nice," he'd say. Weird, but nice. I didn't feel threatened. I felt expanded. Like the circle of people who loved him had grown instead of shrunk. David and I kept talking, really talking. We went to a few counseling sessions, not because we were falling apart, but because we wanted to make sure the cracks stayed open for light, not water. We learned to say the hard things earlier instead of later. And Ethan? He carried it all with the quiet strength teenagers sometimes surprise you with. He asked questions when he was ready. He processed in his own time. One evening he said to me, "I used to think family was just the people under one roof. Now I think it's the people who keep showing up, even when it's complicated." I hugged him so tight he laughed and pretended to squirm away. But he hugged back just as hard. About a year after Sarah first knocked on our door, we had a small dinner. Nothing fancy. Just lasagna, salad, and cake. "Ethan's idea," he said, "why not? Everyone's been part of this story." Sarah came. She brought flowers and a quiet nervousness. Ethan greeted her with a hug, not awkward, just natural. We sat around the table like any other family, laughing about Ethan's terrible attempt at parallel parking, teasing David about his dad jokes. At one point Ethan looked around the table and said, "This is weird, but good weird." We all laughed. And in that laughter, something settled. No one owned the title of mother. No one had to. Sarah had given him life and then the gift of space. I had given him consistency, bedtime stories, scraped knee kisses, and college application panic. David had given him safety and unconditional fatherhood. Together, we had given him a life where love showed up in different shapes. And that was enough. Looking back, I realized the story was never about who got to be called mom. It was never about possession or replacement. It was about showing up. About loving a child through the beautiful ordinary days and the shattering revelations. About forgiving the people who kept secrets out of fear instead of malice. About making room for more love when the world says there isn't enough. Ethan isn't just my husband's son. He isn't just Sarah's son. He's ours, all of ours, in the messy, imperfect, deeply human way that real families are made. And I wouldn't trade a single day of it. Not the years I thought I knew the whole story, and not the years since I learned I didn't. Because every step of it taught me what family really means. It's the people you choose, again and again, even when the truth makes it harder. Especially then. Thank you for listening to my story. If any part of it resonated with you, if you've ever loved a child who wasn't yours by blood, or carried a secret, or rebuilt after the truth came knocking, please share in the comments. What does family mean to you now? What would you do if the past showed up at your door? I read every single one. Your words remind me I'm not alone. Until next time, keep choosing love.